Welcome to the Aligned Powerhouse, the podcast for executive women who are done leading from burnout and ready to rise from alignment. I'm your host, Dr. Brittany McGeehan, licensed psychologist, high performance and mindset coach, and guide for high achieving women who are ready to lead, live, and love without abandoning themselves. Here, we unpack the nervous system truths, mindset shifts, and emotional patterns that drive your leadership so you can build power from the inside out. Let's get into it. Alrighty, y'all. Hello. Welcome back. Today, we are going to be talking about this man that I'm seeing all over Instagram. And I'll be honest with you, I don't follow the World Cup. I'm not into the sports, but I'm very interested in the mindset behind athletes. This is also a large part of the job that I do day to day. And I have been so intrigued in this man, Erling Haaland. I hope that I am pronouncing his name correctly, but he is all over the internet right now. And what I love is that this man is ferocious on the soccer field per the clips that I have seen and the research that I did for this episode. Okay. I will not pretend to be a fanatic here or an expert by any means, but I mean, this man is terrifying. Like if I saw this giant Viking chasing me on a field, I'd be like, oh my God, your ball. No, thank you. Which is probably why I'm not in the sports. But also he is so goofy. He is goofy on the field. He is goofy off the field. Like he is freaking hilarious. And this is what is, I think, taking the world by storm and is such an incredible case study and example for why joy and discipline are not mutually exclusive in ultra high successful leaders. Like for the ones who play to win and they are not kidding around, like they are going to get it done, these two things have to work in tandem. And I thought this was a really beautiful opportunity to do a deep dive here. So we are going to talk about the psychology behind this man. I've not treated this human being. This is completely done with internet stalking, so take that with a grain of salt. But we're going to talk about the psychology here. We are also going to talk about his childhood based on what we know, how he was raised, what his parents did so right with this human being. And then we're going to translate it into a framework that you can actually take and start using, because I think that there are so many incredible lessons here. Really looking at the marriage and the relationship between discipline and joy and play and how these things have to work in tandem for you to not only build the upper extreme of success, but also for you not to burn out. Also for you not to wake up one day in your fancy pants mansion, whatever it is, look around and say, oh, and there's no one here to share it with, right? There's no sense of fulfillment, whatever that means. I don't even care if it's another human. So let's jump in. I'm really excited about this episode. I've been posting about him on my Instagram everywhere. So it's probably not surprising, that I chose to chat about him, in this episode, but let's jump in. So here again is really what it pulls me in, okay? Because I work with people who are exceptional at the discipline half of the equation. And again, this is a man whose discipline in football, like you cannot question it, right? But he is also, like, he's not only the most disciplined man in football, he's also the silliest, goofiest man in this sport right now. And everyone thinks that it is this really charming contradiction or paradox. But from my perspective, from the performance psychology perspective, I'm like, absolutely not. That is the entire strategy. And that is the one that you all need to be stealing and implementing ASAP. Okay. So again, I work with people who are exceptional at the discipline half. They know how to push. They know how to be rigid. They will do the hard thing, the boring thing, the unglamorous thing for years and years and years without being asked. But what almost none of them have is this other half, right? Otherwise they wouldn't be calling me. Somewhere along their way up the ascent, the play and the joy, it gets optimized out of their schedule. Okay. It does not give a real tangible ROI on what they're looking to achieve. It's probably a revenue number, or a C-suite title. So they cut it. And what they can't see is that they just gave away the very thing that actually protects the execution that they are so proud of, right? Because, when I work with people, these are not high performers who are interested in an exit strategy unless that exit strategy is going to lead to another on-ramp, right? Like they're playing the long game. They love this for like the joy of building. And they will sacrifice anything. And this really, really gets in their way because they end up burning out in ways that they didn't anticipate they would. They run into walls, they plateau, they run into all of these issues that they're like, whoa, where did this come from, right? So today we're going to be dissecting the best striker on arguably the planet right now, but we're not going to talk about his finishing. We are going to talk about his architecture, okay? So how was this man actually built? What did his parents do? Well, let's talk a little bit about Norway and the legislation that goes into this country that has also attributed to some of the success and why his playfulness is not in spite of his edge. It is the literal edge, and he has put it on a stage for the world to see right now. And then we're going to talk about yours. So first of all, let's talk about the integration here. I really want to paint the picture, especially if you don't know who I'm talking about or you've only seen little clips here or there, okay? So let's look at both of this because you have to see both. I want you to see him through my lens, okay? So first of all, we have this half of him that is rigid. It is ruthlessly rigid in like the best way. Okay. It is the monk. It is the piece of him that sleeps reportedly from 10 to 13 hours a day, which is the highest in a 39 player study by a wide margin, meaning he is in the upper extreme here in terms of prioritizing rest. And if you watch him when he's interviewed, this goofy freaking Viking will literally sit and talk about how much he sleeps, how much he eats, and the blue blockers that he always wears at least 3 hours before bed, right? The man is rigid. Okay, lights out around 10:30. He's up at 8:30, and we're usually getting a 60 to 90 minute nap. He talks about, and screens are off at a certain time. Okay. He's also eating roughly and reportedly about 6,000 calories a day. And his diet has been built with a nutritionist, okay? So he talks about eating this ancestral diet: heart, liver, fatty steak, fish, eggs, raw milk, root vegetables. No, he doesn't drink, right? Like this man treats recovery like a second job. It is his priority. He also talks a ton about that you are an athlete 24/7, not just the 2 hours when you're on the field. And the other element of this that he talks about a lot is cryotherapy, red light therapy, ice bath, sauna, hypoxic chambers. Like this man is in recovery and he treats it so serious. And there is such a foundation that he is laying here, right? Now, the other thing that my brain hears in this is that his day-to-day life, especially given that he's on like a world stage right now, like, and my husband would like to remind the world, it's not right now. It is like, I was like, hey, have you seen this guy? Because for those of y'all who don't know, my husband is very into soccer and he follows a lot of this way more than I do. And so, as I've been seeing all the little clips pop up, I was like, oh my God, look at this guy. And Nick was like, this guy has been around. Yes, he is absolutely insane, but like, this is not new. And I'm like, okay, well, it is for me. But like what I see here is that his foundation, his day to day is so boring. It is so boring in the best way, right? He's eating the same things. He is there's routine behind when he's going to bed and when he's waking up, and he's doing this because he's really treating his body like a vessel. Like we talk about, you treat your body like a temple, right? Well, he's actually embodying this, and he is showing that he has mastery over his mind and his body in this way, right? I will there's a saying that talks about like you kind of like beat your body into submission. Now, I don't think that has to be like a violent version of beating it into submission. However, if you have a certain goal, and if perhaps your goal is to go and play a serious game, a serious sports game, right? Well, then your body becomes a piece of that puzzle that you cannot neglect. And I would argue it is a piece of the puzzle for anyone's big goal if you are looking to move in the upper extreme, because it fuels all of this, right? So again, we look at these two halves of him. The first, we really have like this monk, this just moving and embodying discipline and a real boring life in like the best freaking way, okay? But then we see, and this is really what drew me into him, right? Like, yeah, the shooting the ball into the goal and all of like that's fantastic, whatever. But the first thing that caught my attention about this man was that he's freaking goofy. Okay, so here we see the child, his inner child, but like this version of him who is not only survived, but it's just so clearly integrated in who he is. Okay, so literally what pulled me in was like all of these he's posting on his Instagram about his Snapchat or whatever, right? But he's posting nonsense. He has gained roughly 20 million Instagram followers during this tournament. Shout out, I'm one of them. Literally and largely by being funny. Okay, there are clips of him jumping at his own like reflection in the mirror, or making fun of the fact that he kind of looks like Squidward, or giving these goofy answers to these questions that could be like rage baity, right? And he's just like, he's goofy. He's so goofy. And you see clips of him being goofy and silly on the field, and you see it off the field. There's so much integration in what appears to be true about this man. Then you see the way that he talks, right? He talks very sincerely and at length in interviews, in postgate, whatever. But he talks about the farm that he wants when he retires and the cows that he will, quote unquote, for sure own, right? Like he's just precious. And he also bought the only surviving copy of a 16th century print of a 13th century book all about Vikings, because he is like literally a Viking, with his dad for about $130,000, and then donated it to the public library in Bryn. I think that's how you pronounce that. Feel free to correct me. And then quipped, I've never really been much of a reader. Right? Like, he's just precious, okay? And one thing that I found as I was sort of doing a deep dive on like who the heck is this human being, is what I saw was that he rarely is retaliating. So like no matter how much he's like rage baited or wrestled or fouled on the field, right? He's literally picking up his opponents off the floor. He is still close with his precious little friends from a farming town of like 13,000. We're going to get into that. Like he just has a very playful essence about him that I think is so endearing, right? Because he is a machine. He is a war general. He is, to me, he's the embodiment of a literal machine. He was literally, I saw some interview and he's being interviewed while he's on like this elliptical or the bike. And, you know, he literally says something like, you know, sometimes I wake up and I'm tired, and then I just tell my body, I'm not tired. This is good for me. And then I'm not tired and I go do it. Right? Like such a mentality of a high performing athlete, which is mind over body. Right? But then he is this secret little golden retriever, and he is precious. Okay. And again, everyone is talking about this as a paradox, that it's a paradox that this machine who is secretly a golden retriever, and I want you to take home something so important, okay? Because what I see is that these are two halves that are actually load bearing. They balance for each other. And if you remove the second one, this playfulness, this child, then eventually the first one breaks. And I got a whole career to back up the truth behind this, right? This is why I see him really just getting started. You have to have both. You have to have this integration. And I think that this man, Haaland just does a beautiful job of putting this on display for all of us to see. So now I want to get into a deep dive here. Like, let's talk about how Bryn actually built him, okay? Because his parents are another piece of this that I'm like, they might be on my list of people that I would love to interview, because I'm so fascinated by how intentional and how incredible they were in how they have raised their son, okay? So Erling was born in Leeds in like 2000. So his father, Alfie, I'm pronouncing that correctly, was playing in a Premier League for Leeds United. His mom, Gree, was a national heptathlon, I had to write that one down, heptathlon champion in Norway. So basically his parents are a really big deal, and they are incredible, insane athletes, okay? So his dad is a professional soccer player. I'm just going to really water this down to like how my brain understands it. And his mom basically does multi-event track events. Okay. Like, she was incredible. So what I hear in this is that his genetics, the genetic hand and the genetic deck here was stacked, and everyone knew. And on top of the fact, like, he's literally a Viking. Okay. But this is exactly what makes what happened next in the story really incredible and remarkable, okay? Because when Erlen was 3, they moved back to Bryn, which is a farming town of about 13,000 people in southwest Norway, okay? So you can picture, like, what comes to mind when I think of Norway is like wind, rain, cows. And from my understanding, when I went and looked this place up, that is literally there's wind, rain, and cows. And his father, a man with literally every credential and connection that would be required to engineer prodigy, did not. Okay. So Alfie, his dad, who coached Haaland for 8 years at Bryn, put it very plainly. The former Premier League father literally said, I want to let my son develop on his own. And so I never interfered at the youth level. So I want you to think about this. I want you to think about this against like, and sort of like position this against what we typically see in parenting, especially in America. Okay. The single most qualified man in town to optimize this boy's development, he chose deliberately to stay out of it. He let him play handball. He let him play golf. He let him do track and field. He let him be a kid in a rainy farming town with wind, rain, and cows. Okay. And this, I think, my hypothesis, my take on this entire case study is that the parenting did not come in the pushing. It actually came in the restraint. And this is the edge. This is what has produced what we see here. Because I want you to think about this and keep in mind what I talk about in here, right? 0 to 18. Excuse me. There is such a strong developmental season that cannot be skipped in this time period. Okay. It cannot be skipped. Your primary personality is developed before the age of 10. And if you don't get it then, you will have a very hard time with integration and bringing these two pieces of yourself into harmony with one another in adulthood. Okay. So again, I think that this was brilliant that Alfie did this for his son. And again, and I think about this as myself, right? Like, I literally have built a career around optimizing the world's best, most elite leaders. I take people who on paper are incredibly successful and I push them and I make them more successful. I make them more, whether that is wealthy or fulfilled, those two things usually go hand in hand. That is so hard for me to do in terms of restraint when I look at my own children. And I literally have an entire degree teaching me how to do that. Like the restraint and the respect that I have for Alfie, and I'm sure this man is not perfect, but in this element, in this very specific element, and acknowledging this is the version that we see in the news, right? Online, there's always more to any story, but my hats off to this man and his wife that they were able to hold space for their child and truly allow their child to just be a child. Like we see it. We see the fruits of their labor and the way that their son he has the eyes of the entire world on him. And he's just a freaking goofball. Okay. So now let's talk about the legislation piece here, because I also find this very fascinating. And I think that there's a lot to be learned here from this example. So yes, we have the family story. We have the family environment, right? But then we also see Norway engineered some of its legislation at a national scale by law, and it did this very intentionally. So in 1987, Norway codified a document that was called the Children's Rights in Sports. Okay. And essentially my understanding of this is it means that there are no published league tables, no official scores, and no national rankings for young children. So results are literally not recorded until around the age of 11, and emphasis on winning doesn't arrive until about 13 years old. I want you to think about that. I think about that right now. Being a mother with young children, like people have literally been asking me if, we were looking into dance for my daughter and everyone was like, well, you're going to do competitive, right? You're going to do competitive, right? Like you have to do, and for a lot of these studios around here, like literally you have to put your child in competitive dance in order to have them dancing. And I'm just like, she's not even 4 years old. Are you kidding me right now? Like, I just want her to go move her body and enjoy it. And there's such an emphasis on a competitive culture, at least here in the Dallas, Texas area. Another piece of this legislation in Norway talked about no national championships for children. Regional competition does not even start until about 11. That's unheard of in this area. There's no early specialization, so kids are actively encouraged to play multiple sports. And you can literally be fined for posting youth game results online. Again, chef's kiss. There's literally a word for this that I found for this governing idea, but I'm not even going to try to say it. It starts with an I, but it means the joy of sport. Okay, so not the pursuit of it, but the genuine joy and fulfillment of sport. And I just think that this is incredible, and it is something that by every instinct in the American high performance culture that we would think this would lead to producing soft athletes. Okay, we could never. And instead, what we see is that Norway actually has a 93% youth sports participation rate, which is nearly 40 points higher than the United States by comparison here. Okay. And a country of 5 million people just knocked out Brazil out of the World Cup, led by the best striker who is alive right now, who is also the goofiest human on the earth. So I don't think that this argument of taking away scores and protecting childhood at its childhood level is going to lead to soft athletes. I just don't really think that's actually going to hold up. Because again, they removed the literal scoreboard from childhood and they got the world's most lethal finisher. So again, I see that incorporating and protecting fun at a developmental level was the entire, that, to me, that is the talent strategy. That is how you are going to have top producers. So I want to continue to move into this because I I just think it's so fascinating. And I think that there's a lot to be learned here, okay? Because the restraint literally continues. So Haaland stayed at his hometown club in Britain until he was about 16 years old. Now, he wasn't spirited off to some like fancy smancy mega academy at 13, which is typically what happens. Then Mold, and then Salzburg, and then Manchester City, okay, which is my understanding, like that's where he plays right now. I could be wrong. Don't come for me. Whatever. This is what the internet told me. But every rung in order with time on each. It was a slow build to where he is right now. There was not an accelerated path, and there wasn't like a crunch timeline, which I will tell you again, the top performers that I work with, typically they have moved at an accelerated timeline. Okay. And what I tell people when I am working with them and they have a really big audacious goal, and a part of that is that they have a timeline that is condensed significantly, what I tell them is, what are you ready to sacrifice? Because one, any goal is going to have a sacrifice that comes with it. Okay. You can see this in Haaland's story, in the fact that he's got a pretty day-to-day boring life. He's pretty rigid. He's going to sleep. He's going to recover. He's going to train. He's going to play, right? Like, for all intents and purposes, this is a fairly boring way to live your life. It's very predictable. There's going to be sacrifice, but if you are going to also add in that you want to do this at an accelerated rate, well, now something is really significantly going to fall off your plate. So what are you willing to sacrifice? Okay. Is it your overall health? Is it your relationships? Is it your life satisfaction for a season? And we're just really like in it for this specific goal. But I think that this is something that Haaland did really well, because we see that he spent a significant amount of time on each team that he was in and then continued to progress. Okay. So there was a line from one of his coaches, Bernstein, where he talks about that he remembers thinking when Haaland was like this teeny tiny little skinny teenager, let the home audience see this guy, because soon we're going to lose him. And even if this boy is skinny now, like wait some years because of his family and his genes, he will explode in power and growth and strength. And I think what that speaks to is that his coaches, his teams, they knew what they had, and yet they didn't push him. Which to me, and in the culture that I am submerged in, right, that is just unheard of. They held, and I almost imagine these adults in his life as really holding the world at bay and towing the line for this child, right? Because even at 16, at 13, like you're a child, you're still a baby. I don't think you should be babied, but like, do you know what I mean? Like you're a kid. And so I saw another interview from another coach, like 20 years in the span of like these timelines, right? And he said something to the effect, he's quite similar now to when he was 12 years old. So all of the surroundings, the arenas, like all of the stakes have changed, but his personality and who he is the exact same at 12 years old. And that is just so striking to me, right? That really what I hear in that is that nobody like sanded the kid off of him. They protected it. And yeah, I think about parenting as like a mission, right? You're either on the mission or you're not on the mission, like whatever, but like we've got a goal in mind. And I am just like, mission freaking accomplished. Like y'all killed it. Now here's where I want to start giving you a little bit of a framework here that you can start to understand this and apply the same mechanism into your own day-to-day life. Okay, so we're going to think about this as like the loose grip. So discipline, if discipline is the grip and play, goofiness, is the looseness, then execution is going to live in the space in between. Okay. So like literally right now, I want you to think about like gripping your fists really, really tight, right? Like super, super tight. If you do that too hard, you can feel your body start to tense up. But likewise, if you have it really loose, well, then there's not really anything there to move with. Okay. So again, execution is going to live in the space between, and it's going to die, movement is going to die at either extreme, okay? So if your grip is too tight and you flinch, you lose everything, okay? So this is the thing that I talk about constantly. Under pressure, the human animal contracts. We hold our breath, we tighten, we narrow, we move into a space of over controlling. And that tightness is precisely what destroys incredible execution, okay? This is why elite athletes get the yips, and it's why brilliant investors will freeze on the trade that they know that they were most right about, right? Fear does not make you careful, it makes you rigid, and rigid people cannot execute what they know to be true. So, if you're gripping too tight, you're going to flinch. But if your grip is too loose, then you become a hobbyist. Okay, talent with no structure is just a party trick. It's talent for talent's sake. Okay, it doesn't compound and it doesn't actually survive a bad run. The elite know how to hold both at once. So here's the part that I really zoomed in on and that I want you to take away from this, right? I see discipline as being what buys you the freedom for fill in the blank. And if you got your journal out, I want you to write that down, right? Discipline buys me the freedom to fill in the blank. Haaland's rigidity off of the pitch, the hours and hours of sleep, the Wade food, the Cairo, like it is precisely what allows him his total playfulness and looseness on the field. Right? He doesn't have to think when he's out there because he's already paid. And the boring base is literally what bought him the right to play in the first place. So again, structure is not the opposite of spontaneity. Structure is actually what makes spontaneity affordable. And this is huge, guys, because something that I see is that when I am talking to folks, especially if they're in startup, especially if they are just getting started, okay, we see playfulness and we see discipline as being opposing edges on a spectrum. And I don't see it that way. I think they have to dance together. And again, going back to like my last episode of like, what season are you in? Are you in a season of building the foundation, or are you in a moment of being able to play because of it, right? This is where knowing where you are is going to keep you from being in these mindset extremes. Now, here's the deeper piece. And this one is like straight from my consulting room to yours. Okay. So if football were Haaland's entire identity, then every single time he misses a goal or has a bad play, it would be an existential devastation, okay? Like every shot would be carrying the entire weight of his whole self. And that weight is exactly what leads someone to tighten the grip and therefore leads you to actually miss the goal in the first place, okay? You cannot play freely and dance with life if there's a gun being held to your own head and you're the one holding it, okay? Like it's just not going to happen. Instead, look at what he has kept, right? He has kept the farm, the cows, the boyhood friends from a teeny tiny little town. He has kept the partner that he has known since Bryn, the library, the nonsense in his personality. There is a version of Erling Haaland that survives a bad game. And that is precisely why he doesn't have many bad games, okay? He is diversified. And so my question to you is, are you? Or is your entire identity concentrated on one single position, and that is that you are a high performer? Okay? Because if this is the case, you are eventually, even if it's not today or tomorrow, you are going to see your performance start to stagnate. So I don't want you to walk away from today's episode and hear, be playful and work less. I think that this would be such a misunderstanding of what I'm handing you today. And it's really not the one that I want you to make. What I want you to hear is that there is a hierarchy, there is a step, there's a progression here that is so important, and that play is downstream of extraordinary discipline if you want to keep all of the above plus high performance, okay? Again, this man sleeps 11 to 13 hours. He eats to a plant. He drinks no alcohol and he treats his recovery like a second freaking job. The joy is not an excuse to skip this boring part. It is part of the boring part, or it's part of what the boring part buys, right? Without that discipline, play is just unserious. And if you earn it first, you will also see the results continue to support it. Now, here is the other half of what I would add here, okay? There is a common line in high performance, ultra high net worth circles that you have to be obsessed to be great. And I understand why people say it, because success comes with a level of discernment. It comes with a level of sacrifice that I do think flirts in obsession. But I would offer a refinement, because I have watched what obsession alone does to people over 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and it's not pretty, okay? What I would say is that obsession without joy has a half-life, and eventually you will stagnate. It is going to burn hot, and then it will burn out. And it's going to take the person and their family with it, okay? And again, this is what I find so intriguing and enamoring about Haaland, is that he demonstrates obsession and play. And the play is not the counterweight to the obsession. It really is this lifeblood. It is the lifeline that fuels it. And it is what makes 20 years of the boring base survivable. And it is what keeps the hand loose when the whole world is out here watching you, okay? So here's what I want to add. Here's the challenge I want to leave you with. First is I want you to do an audit of your concentration. So I want you to list everything that is going to make you who you are. Okay. Now, mark what is downstream of your work. So if you had a bad quarter, or if a bad quarter would shake your sense of who you are over concentrated in one area. And, it is the costing you return, right? So like, I really want you to see, like, do we have an over concentration in one area of your personality? Do you have life outside of business? Do you have life outside of your family? Like how balanced are we here? Okay. Now the next is I want you to find your brand. So what do you have that has nothing to do with performance and that you would keep even if it literally never worked again, right? Haaland has the cows in a farming town. And if you cannot name your version of that in 10 seconds, like that is what you need to run after, and you need to go find it, because it's going to offer a counterweight and it's going to help you find some of this play. My third challenge to you is to check your grip. Okay. So as you're looking at these concentrations, as you're looking at this balance and really doing this audit for yourself, where are you white knuckling? And I want you to notice how that tightening shows up exactly where the stakes are highest. Okay. So if it is pushing the edges of your revenue goals, if it is out, so like whatever it is. Okay. This is exactly where it's also going to cost you the most. And the last one I want to leave you with is protecting the boring base. I want you to find your foundation. I want you to think about what that is for you. And I want you to be ruthless about protecting it. Okay. Sleep, prep, recovery. I think that we really have this mentality in this world that life should be magical and beautiful and spontaneous 24/7. And this is coming from someone who loves the whimsy, and I have flowers in my backyard that I love to tend to and all of the things. But I think the idea that life should live there is nonsensical and it's childlike. The reality is that if you want to continue moving forward and moving faster and dreaming bigger, then 95% of what that takes is incredibly boring and incredibly unglamorous. And if you were on, I saw like some quote the other day that was just like, I think it was, what is his name? Alex Hormozy. And he was talking about, right now it has never been easier than right now to do incredible things in this world. And it has simultaneously never been easier to do nothing in this world. Right? Our ability to get sucked into doomsday scrolling or pittering away our time on social media is unreal. And it is also true that actually protecting this base is boring. It's not fun. It's not glamorous. And if you think that it's supposed to be, then you really need to go do some mindset work here, because it is that very thing that is going to buy the freedom and the play. And again, my hat's off to Haaland, because he literally talks about that he will cut everything before he cuts sleep. And I dig it. So there you have it. I hope that today was helpful. Really want to leave you with this idea that, the discipline is what buys the freedom, and the play is what you buy it for. Okay. Haaland did not become the best striker on the earth in spite of still being this kid from Bryn. He did it because he is this kid from Bryn. And he became it because nobody ever talked him out of being a kid. Okay. I hope that today's episode was helpful, and I will see you on the next one. Alrighty, friend, that is all for today's episode of the Aligned Powerhouse podcast. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And do me a favor, if this episode resonated, I want you to share it with another powerhouse woman in your life who is ready to lead and love from a place of self-trust. And don't forget to follow, subscribe, and leave a quick rating or review. It really does help more women find this work. New episodes drop every week. Until then, lead with self-trust and let yourself be seen.